Welcome everyone, it's Sherry Carroll for SimonsSaysStamp.com, and I'm here today with a colorful art journaling project where I can create a card or a mini journal using some colorful inks and stencils. I'm starting this project off with a few of the Simon Says Stamp mini slimline envelopes. You can use whatever colors you'd like. I'll be using white, and I've also cut a sheet. This measures 7 inches by 6.5 inches, and it'll fit 2 of the envelopes side by side, and this will be my cover. I'll be working on my glass mat and using my craft tacky mat, and the first stencil I'm going to use is the Happy Rainbow, and this is a set of 6 by 9 rainbows, and it comes in 4 pieces, so I'll show you how these work. So one stencil has some cutouts and also some decorations on there, and so once you start building these together, you'll complete a rainbow. So with my cover on my sheet, I'm going to align this so the rainbow kind of matches side to side, so I have about the same amount in between. And I'm going to start using some great colors, but first I'm going to tape down the bottom here of the rainbow so that I don't go into my white paper below. The first color that I'm using is Cheeky, and I'm just going to color in this top portion of the rainbow. Once I have that colored in, I do like to go back in with a paper towel and kind of clean off around where I've stenciled. This helps me to not transfer any of the ink to another portion of the stencil. My next rainbow line will be Limalicious, and I'm just going to color in this portion of the rainbow. If you need help with your color selections, just follow the back of the package and it'll help you out in determining what colors you might want next. And now I'm ready for some blue down towards the bottom, so I'm using the Simon Says Stamp Positively Saturated Marine ink, and I'm going to fill in this small little portion. With my first stencil down in place, I'm setting the second one right on top, and now I'm ready to add some of the decorations to each of those rainbow pieces. And now I'm using Limalicious, and I'm using that decorative stencil. I'm going right over the light green, using the darker green, and I'm creating that stitch line and the line that sits right underneath. And next I'm going in with blush ink over the Cheeky ink to create the decoration for this rainbow portion. And now I can remove the top stencil, and I have my lower layer below, and I have all those areas stenciled. Once I peeled the first stencil off, I can add that second stencil, which is more rainbow stripes, and get this ready for inking. And for this line of the rainbow, I'm using the Simon Says Stamp Grapefruit ink as my orange. To keep myself from ink blending any of the areas that I don't want to, I'm just using a little bit of tape and I'm masking off those lower portions. And for this stripe of my rainbow, I'm using the Simon Says Stamp Surf ink. It happens to be one of my favorite colors. I'm just going to get this well blended in. And now I've added the decorative stencil on top of the stencil that I'm working with, and I'm filling in, adding those little tiny dots on that orange rainbow piece. And for the bottom of my rainbow, I've added in some flannel ink. With my fourth stencil aligned, I'm using Simon Says Stamp Zest ink, and this is a really beautiful yellow. For the last color of my rainbow, I'm using the Simon Says Stamp Dew ink. This is a beautiful in-between color of the surf and marine. And I just love using layering stencils, and when you lift the stencil on your final piece, you have your rainbow. Now I'm going to score in the center, and I'm using my scoreboard. I will score this at 3.5 inches, going down to the center. With my cover nearly complete, I'm moving to the inside, and I have my 2 envelopes down on my craft tacky mat, and I put some tape around those edges so that I don't accidentally hit them with the ink. And I'm going to be using some Cheeky ink, and this time I'm going to be stenciling in a circular motion. So I'm going to be using the colors, and I'm going from the outside around, And I'll be adding in the cheeky just around the outside of the basic circle of that flower. And I'll keep adding color until I'm happy with the coverage. And next I'm going in with the grapefruit ink and I'm just going to overlap it slightly over the cheeky. And I'm just going to go around in a circle. To give this a little more interest, I'm going in with a smaller blending brush and I'm adding some blush ink around that cheeky, just on the outer edges. And I'll do the same thing over the grapefruit ink using mandarin. And next I'm filling in part of the center. I'm going to leave a little bit more for my last color, but I'm using Zest ink and that small brush. And to finish it off, I'm using the Limelicious right in that center, and I'm blending that into the Zest ink. And for the reveal, I can peel up my stencil, and it was really easy to do 2 envelopes at the same time. For my next envelope, I'm using the Groovy Blooms, and this is a set of 3 stencils. So it has one that is all leaves, one that is flower centers, and then one that is the flowers. And I have my envelope flap open and I'm working horizontally. For the larger flowers of the stencil, I'm using the Simon Says Stamp Surf ink, and I'm using a small blending brush so I don't get into all the other areas. And for the medium-sized flowers, I'm using Cheeky ink, and again, I'm using the smaller brushes. And finally, the smaller flowers are getting their dose of Zest ink. With the leaf stencil in place, I can go in and add some Limelicious ink. And then I can touch them up and make them a little bit more dimensional by going in with some Perfection over top. And finally, I'm aligning the last stencil from this set, and those are the flower centers. For the cheeky flowers, I'm using blush for the center, grapefruit for my surf-colored flowers, and also grapefruit for my little yellow flowers. And once I release the stencil, I have a really sweet envelope. And you can see that I have that taped at the bottom because the stencil won't reach the length of the envelope. Plus, I'll be folding that under to attach it to the journal. So now all of my pieces really coordinate well together since I used all the same ink colors, but with different stencils. Next, I've used the bold flower die and I've cut some of these large pieces and a couple leaves, and I've ink blended them using the same colors so they'll match everything else in my journal. I've also cut a piece of white cardstock from the Squoval, and these are really fun shapes, and I thought it would add some really good interest to this entire journal. So now that I have all my pieces together, I can start doing some assembly. The Squoval piece will be wrapping around the envelope that's on the right, and I'm just marking that with a pencil. And now I can use my scoreboard and score right down to get a good crease. I like to lay my pieces out to get a good idea how everything will fit before I commit to gluing them down. Now on this piece, I'm going to score right at the bottom of my stenciled area so that I can wrap this around the left side of the journal. I'm going to open up the bottom end of this envelope. I really don't need all the bulk. So I want to open this up and remove some of those layers of the paper so it'll sit flat. And I'll use my scissors to cut away the second layer of that paper. I'll be using the 1/4 inch Simon Says Stamp Terrific tape to put these down. I'm going to put 2 strips on the back of this flap. And to remove the backing of the adhesive, I'm using our new tool. This is the Simon Says Stamp Adhesive Lifter Tool. And you can just rub this over the back and it peels up that adhesive so that you can grab. I don't know how many times that I have struggled with grabbing the paper. And next, all I need to do is fold this around that envelope and press it down in place. So now we have the 2 envelopes, one wrapped around the other, and these will sit on the left side inside the journal. And next, I'm scoring my flower envelope so that it can be folded at the center of this journal. I'm just going to go back over this with my bone folder and give that a crease. And I'll also use the terrific tape to wrap the Squoval around the envelope that is on the right. I'll be gluing the flower to the Squoval, and I'm just using our Simon Says Stamp white glue. Usually I love to do dimension, but since this is going to fold in the center, I want everything to lay as flat as it can. So for each of these pieces, they'll get a little dose of glue, and I'll stack them together. For a little durability and some fun, I have the Lawn Fawn Vertical Rainbow Stripes washi tape, and I've had this for a while, and I was pleasantly surprised and pleased to find that all the colors really match the colors I chose for my rainbow. So I'm going to set this right at the bottom and line it up at the bottom of the rainbow, and then I can tear off the side and make sure I press that down really well. So next I'm just going to fold up all the hangover edges from the bottom, and sorry I'm a little bit off camera, but I have just a little bit that's going to hang over, and I want to make sure that everything will fold, and I'm going to press that little extra right up to the back side. And then I can use my scissors to clip off the excess. And to make sure that washi tape stays in place, I'm going to add a little bit of glue down the bottom, just to make sure. And now I'm ready to commit to my design, and I have some May Arts satin ribbon. This is really nice and thin, and I'm going to lay this onto that background with a little bit of glue underneath, and I'll make sure that I have it straight on both sides. And then I can go around all the edges of this cover with my Simon Says Stamp Craft Tacky glue. I'm making sure I have some in the center, and I'm going to make sure those ribbons are nice and aligned. And now I can start to place these center pieces, and I'm going to make sure that they're really well aligned from the top to the bottom and across. And I'll do the same for the right side. I just want to make sure all my glue is wet and I can still move things around, that I have everything matched up. Okay, so we did it. It is complete. So I really love, first of all, that it has a front and back and that it matches. And I also have my ribbon in here so I can tie it closed. When you open it up, there's fun little flaps. The flower can flap up. You can do some journaling on the side or add messages. And I love this little envelope that you can put something inside, and it's an added feature so you can fold it away. And then also that these top envelopes, you can also add something inside. I hope you've enjoyed this project of creating an envelope journal, or really it could be a birthday card with lots of little hidden areas. The stencils were really fun. Once you choose your colors, you can just stencil away to make your creation. I do have all my supplies listed in the description box below, along with a link to our blog post for more information. And as always, thanks so much for watching.
Hi there, I'm Heidi, Simon's mama and founder at SimonsSaysStamp.com. Thank you so much for watching our video. If you like what you just saw, be sure to press the thumbs up and subscribe to see more great content.